President's comments about Haitians, Africans, people from El Salvador, well, it was a major source of conversation at black churches yesterday. Many pastors had to do last-minute rewrites of their sermons. Also a major issue at Al Sharpton's National Action Network King Day event today. Dominic was there.
The event turned out to be a who's who among New York's political establishment. President Trump's immigration comments on people from Haiti, El Salvador, and African nations overshadowing everything else.
What the president said is a national security risk is an international insult, and it does not represent his home state. Stand up and condemn what they're doing in Washington because it's vile and repulsive and ugly and un-American.
A diverse group here today, but one message aimed at the President of the United States, contending his comments are yet another confirmation of where the President stands on the topic of race.
I don't know how many tweets I can take. It is easy to be confused. It is easy to be depressed. But if we were to be depressed, if we were to be paralyzed by all the negativity, then we would have forgotten the lesson of Dr. King.
Reverend, I'm curious. Did you have to rewrite what you were going to say for Sunday?
Absolutely.
And what did you say?
I talked about the difference between light and darkness, casting a shadow forward. And because of my particular congregation, which is largely West Indian, largely from the Caribbean, his comments went right into their heart. In the same way that the idea of sending people out of the country and deporting people went right to the heart of this community. And so it's a difficult process to hold up light in a dark place, but that had to be the message.
Were the people worried, what about me? What could happen to me? Or were they more irate that somebody who doesn't know them spoke the way that he did about them?
I think there's both, because in a practical sense, this could be their mother, this could be their husband or their child. And so it's not just a conceptual concern about inappropriate language. This is flesh and blood.
You know, guys, there was a couple real-life examples that put a face to the broad condemnation that the president said about these people in quotes. You see a couple of them on your screen, including Private Mensa. This was the guy who ran in not once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times into a burning building for not his own family and saved many, many people and died on the upper floors of a building when he was saving or tried to do one final save in here. And he posthumously got the highest honors one can give. And also you saw another young man there. This was a Haitian immigrant who came to this country, graduated at the top of his class from West Point, and now is serving this country. And I'll just say as an aside, his commander-in-chief took 5 deferments to avoid military service, and he couldn't remember which foot had the spurs in it that kept him from serving. And he condemns a whole population, including these. Jarek, I'm curious, over the weekend with friends and stuff when this thing's processed, what's the takeaway?
I think everyone was very disheartened, but I think arguably people of all creeds and colors were offended. You know, I'm a member of the diaspora, so what is being said about Haitians or folks from the continent or El Salvadorians, any people of color, I mean, it's offensive, it's extremely offensive. And we also know why he's saying it, right? We're at a point where this country is extremely diverse and where at this day and age, it's almost majority minority. So I feel like the attacks that he's making against the people that he's made them against, if anything, it's to play to his base, who may not be happy with immigration status and which immigrants are actually coming into the country, which I think is problematic. We shouldn't pick and choose who has a right to opportunity or who has a right to freedom. Like, that's not the American way. And if anything, we're talking about Haitian Americans right there. I mean, a lot of them represent the best in our country, or other members from of the African continent have come here. It's just really sad and it's disheartening. But you know what? I really do hope it brings people together.
We go into precinct houses as a guest. Are they saying this president's making it harder for them to do their job? Does it change the job at all? I'm curious, for the people on the front lines, and then you're having dialogue that's doing the division, does it filter even into there?
Well, you know, law enforcement throughout the country has become a lot more diverse, lot more space, room to go, but it's become a lot more diverse, and it's not a monolithic type of an industry. So I'm going to go on, if there's 1 million people, there's going to be 2 million opinions. So there's a faction in law enforcement that supports Donald Trump full behind him, and there's a faction that doesn't. As a whole, law enforcement has always been a very conservative, right-wing ideology. So I would garner that he's picking up support by and large in the law enforcement industry. Now, does he have total support? No, because it's not a monolithic industry, but certainly there's a lot of people in law enforcement that support Donald Trump. And I think the interesting question, and I think what we need to focus, and this is what I look at when I look at my political leaders, is that and we're just looking at the clip, when we just show a little clip of National Wrestling Network. I don't want you to tell me that Donald Trump is the problem. I've got that. You know, brother, tell me, I've got the problem. You can state that to me 1,000 times. I got that. Now the question is, tell me what's the solution and what are you going to do about it? And I think that that's some of the problems. So as long as we have our elected officials, they're up there saying Donald Trump is the problem, Donald Trump is the problem, rah, 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 then he'll be our president for 7 more years. Now tell me what's the strategy to combat that and, in fact, his base. Because I'm not ready to write his base off as totally racist. His base is seeing something in him that they like. May not be perfect, but he's saying something that they haven't heard before. And is there any type of validity in what they're thinking and what they're feeling? And if there is, let's address that small part and then get into where we think that the president is off kilter, maybe unstable.
And Dom, I think she's right, that there's an echo chamber. The easiest speech you can do is go to New York City, right, on Martin Luther King Day and talk about bad things the president's saying. The truth of it is, what's freaked out white people for a while is the trend that Jerica pointed to. Not too long from now, the majority of the American population will be non-white. Not as a single monolithic group, but as a combined thing. And that freaks some people out. But the part that they never say is, Trump's grandparents lied about where they came from because Germans weren't popular in the early 1910s or whatever in this country. They said they were sweet. In fact, he even put that in the Art of the Deal. A lot of people I know, Irish, need not apply, Italians that compared them to dogs. You do any chapter in this country, America didn't do open arms to that population. If people are reminded of that these are just the latest folks here to get this treatment right now, it'd be a little different. That I unfortunately don't hear the politicians doing enough. Instead of, they go after the guy who says the stupid thing, and they don't talk about, you go to an American naturalization meeting, you find more patriotic people there who know more about the Constitution than 10 American citizens, right? They're the ones who hit the kid in the back of the head and tell their son to take a hat at the national anthem instead of, Joe Schmo that you'll see at the Knick game, So I don't know how that happens, but at that event, I thought it was a missed opportunity.
Well, are we really going to blame our elected officials, or are we going to take the personal responsibility of when it was time to vote, we didn't turn out and vote for the Democrat in this race? At some point,
but don't you think some electeds, though, have a job about education?
No, I don't. You know why? Because elected officials are always going to protect their rear end. They're always going to do what's in their best interest. So if it's in their best interest to take on Trump, they will. If there's a political liability for them to take on Trump, they won't. For the most part, Republicans on a party line, they're not going to take him on.
You did what you and I know in TV is a perfect segue, because that's where I'm going on this. When we come back, what to do about this here. One of the most disappointing things for me was, even though there were 7 senators in the room, one Republican stood up and another Democrat said what he said. I got radio silence, if not even worse, from the rest of the folks in the room. Where is the condemnation from the majority of folks from the political party that this man leads? We're going to talk about that and more after this.